Good morning. What a day. I have friends this morning. They wanted to take a peek at you. Eeyore's a little shy. So I thought I'd take some time this morning as people are getting on the call to have you write in the comment section of the live video if you remember your favorite animals. Good morning. Your favorite stuffed animals, your favorite dolls, your favorite childhood playmates. So I was really happy to see three of my playmates that actually weren't really my playmates until until my baby brother was born when I was 10 years old, and then they were his playmates, except that at 10 years old I snuck and played with them too. So I thought that this morning, sort of like a child meditation, our child meditation, that we just share with each other our favorite friends when we were little children, our non-human friends, our inanimate friends, so we thought. But yet somehow those inanimate friends animated us. So let's just take a moment and just write out on the chat, on the comments, just what were your friends? What were your favorite friends? Even if they didn't have a name. Like Eeyore was my favorite friend because when I was a little girl, I was very sad, and Tigger made me laugh. And Piglet, I think his name is. He and I didn't have much of a relationship, but Eeyore and Tigger, they were really significant for me, and Christopher Robin because he lived in his imagination and his imagination became real. So I'm watching the screen. I'm going to stop talking in a minute if people don't write down their favorite childhood friends. It's good to be a child again. We're adult too much. We lose our childhood friends. Some people, like Deb's son, he had what do you call those things that curl up in a ball? Not an armadillo. They're prickly too. Can't think what they're called. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, I'm watching the screen. Thank you. I'm watching the screen. We need to bring all these imaginative beings back in our field today, back into our imagination. Very good. Notice how you feel, what the sensations are when you write this down. Notice what starts to happen. A certain weight of responsibility to be an adult comes off our shoulders. Hedgehog, that's what Josh had. But Josh had a live hedgehog, has a live hedgehog. He's kept hedgehogs all this time. So just take a minute. This is our meditation. To give the child in us a place. And maybe as adults, as we do this meditation, we enter this meta state of a meta reality that was so real for us when we were young. We bring the children in our lives into the field. Whether they're our grandchildren, our own children that think they're grown up now, whether they're children we see on the street, children at the effect of the world. But most of all, I want you to feel the sensation. That sensation as people continue to write what animated them when they were children, and probably still animate you. But what is this sensation we're experiencing? It's restoration. We could even say we're restoring a world, a meta reality that once we belonged to so easily. So simply. When I was I think I was about 3 feet tall, my uncle bought me a stuffed dog, a floppy dog, like the hounds, with floppy ears and floppy everything. But he was the best stuffed dog because I could curl around him because he and I were the same size. I think it was about maybe an ankle to foot longer than him. And when I was 16, I was invited to sing at the Waldorf Astoria, and can't remember his name right now. He was a orchestra leader. His first name was Harry. And so teenagers were invited to sing in kind of these out of the way rooms where people came to have quiet. And the one in Waldorf Astoria was down kind of like in the basement. I mean, it's beautiful. It wasn't like I was in the basement like we think of a basement. But what was so funny is my mom told me to dress up when I went and to look nice because it was a fancy hotel. And so I had my suitcases. The bellman came to get my luggage when I came in on the taxi. I'd gone up on the train, and so I remember it well because there were 3 stacked suitcases, and laying across the top of the what we might call the vanity case was draped this incredibly flat, floppy-eared dog that had been with me since I was 3 feet tall. He was my security blanket. And off I went with everybody staring at me as the bellman guided, rolled my suitcases through the lobby and checked me in and up the elevator. And he was looking very proper, and his eyes were kind of looking straight ahead. And my mom had told me to make sure to tip him $5. So I have this $5 thing now. And I went up to my room. You will not believe my room. I literally I was literally in the attic room of the Waldorf Astoria where some of the help live. And so I literally went in this teeny little cubbyhole of a room, and I could look out over New York. It was stunning. But I turned around to give him my $5 bill and thank him. It was very like standing on my toes and very awkward and very, very scared and very shy. And he said, I'd rather have your dog, the dog. And I said, no, but you can come visit him. And he just put me completely at ease. It's amazing what bonds us to other people and to life. It's never bonding is never about how smart we are. We can gather lots of people around us. I certainly know this one because we're smart and have something to say that seems to satisfy people's needs and take care of humans longing for answers. But just stay with the sensation. We are in a sensation of a meta state of bonding, restoring the bond between ourselves and what animates us and what we could have animate others. Just feel it. It's interesting. I can tell our age differences because I never had trolls. In 10 years, trolls were probably 10 years after me. And my brother had Pooh and Eeyore and Piglet and Tigger. And I loved having a 10-year-old brother 10 years younger than me because it gave me an excuse to go take him to Disney movies and to play with Pooh and Tigger and Piglet. And I'm really serious about this. Something's happening in the ethers nowadays. And even when I say things like the spirit of life is returning, we go into our heads like something out there is sort of like Santa Claus's sleigh is riding in on the clouds. But no, it's in us. The ethers of spirit are awakening in us. Be ye as children to enter the kingdom of paradise. What are the images that you don't have to write these down, but I really want to populate the comment section with our friends that we were told were not real, and yet they made us feel real. What's that? What's that? Could it be the sensation of something we boxed and put away and made sordid called imagination? What if all the time it awakened our ethers? The ether of our spirit in our little bodies and the strange world we'd found ourselves in. Did anybody not have toys or stuffed creatures or seashells, or I also had glass animals. I had a trove of dolls. My whole walls were dolls and stuffed animals. In hindsight, it really buffered me. Notice the sensation of what you loved when you were a child, and even now. And notice the sensation of it and how it makes you feel. And then go into your adult self and see if you can very subtly, with great finesse and care, just feel that state shift between the responsibilities you carry and the concerns you have and the things you have to get done. And then just shift your psyche back and forth gently and gently. We're working with ethers today, the ether of our spirit, our spirits. And just very softly shift back and forth. Notice how it begins to blend. Could even take the edge off of the weights of responsibility we carry. What if we could add that to our day? I used to have a boa, a snake, not the Roaring Twenties boa. Her name was Susie. She was about the length of my elbow down to my fingers, and she rode in my bra. I really loved her. And what would happen is let's see, how old was I? I guess I was in Megan had been born, so probably my 30s. And she went with me everywhere. And sometimes we were in the grocery store and she'd peek out of my bra, come up in between my breasts. Nobody saw my breasts, and peek over that's why I still wear a V-neck, because I have this lovely sensation of Susie curling over my V-neck, the point of the V on um, my hoodie or my blouse, and looking around. She'd lift her little head and she'd look around. Yes, I got reactions, but I got to see human beings shaken out of a stupor. It was amazing this morning. Um, that's a story in itself. Liz is in my trip over the mountain. It was fabulous. But this morning when I woke up, I was having this thought about things I wanted to presence that I just didn't know how to presence them. There's no amount of talking about something that has you be present to something. People talk till they're blue in the face about lots of things. But it's another thing to be present to the vitality of life, to the ether of spirit. And I was also had forgotten my stand that puts my phone, that I can hold my phone securely on. And so I stood up and I was cold because Colorado is a moist cold and New Mexico is a dry cold. And my system was not user friendly, is not user friendly yet to the moist cold. And when I was looking for where to situate the phone, this lovely little portable clock was there. It's worked perfectly. And there they were, Pooh and Eeyore and Piglet and Tigger. And it all rushed back. The child memories. Well, actually, in my case, they were like 10-year-old memories when or maybe 12 or 14-year-old memories when my brother was best friends were Tigger and Piglet and Pooh and Eeyore. Mine were dolls and the dog who had no name. And then my favorite story about the sad, sad horse, and how we knew he was loved so much because he was rubbed until all the fluff on his stuffed animal body had been worn off, and that's how you knew you were loved. And I could feel the portal open between worlds that we can only reach through sensation. We can only reach through imagination. We can only reach through this sense of being bonded to life. And it takes over if you notice. The question is, how long can you stay in it? And how deep you can let these sensations reach inside of you. Hi. Good morning. See how still you can be. That's why bonding is restoration. I carry this quilt with me wherever I go. It was Lily's quilt. And notice the part of you that wonders when I'll be able to get rid of it and not need it as a crutch anymore. I'm not getting rid of it. I haven't washed it even. Why? Is it because I'm weak and helpless and I can't make it on my own, or it's just so hard to lose her? Or is it because I stay alive in her memory? I stay alive, feeling her close to me. And what about the part where we're not supposed to cry? We need to be a grown up. We need to let our lost loves just go away. But even though when those tears come up, is it joy or is it sorrow? Am I tapping back into something so deep and so rich that's been lost to me often in my everyday life? It's like this kind of mechanical doing, list oriented thing takes over. Or some of us have the saving the world complex. Some of us hurt and want to not hurt anymore. But the way through hurt is the pain of love. How many of you, I'd love this written on the comments too, how many of you were devastated when one of your favorite animals or dolls or um, favorite things was lost to you? Go back to that memory, okay? Come on, let's do this. Go back to that first memory of having something you really cared for taken away from you. Not a human, something you were safe to, something that you felt safe with, made you feel okay. And somehow we got all mixed up about it. And we shut ourselves down because we weren't supposed to cry over a silly doll. I don't think I've ever written about this, but some of you have heard the prophecy that we're living in now. But my son, Aaron, uh, we had been in Texas, and the kids were, I think Aaron was, I don't know, he was 6, and Liana was 8, that's right. And when we were in Texas, we had left his blankie behind. And kids really ridiculed him for his blankie that he had when he was a baby. But he carried it with him everywhere. So he'd left it in the car, and we'd all gone horseback riding, and he came back, and somehow he'd taken it out and left it on the ground, and he was devastated. So, no, he was 4 when that happened. So a couple of years later, when I was in bed and he was sleeping with me, and I was summoned into a dimensional territory to get information, receive information from a greater being about these times. When I came back, I went back to sleep and had forgotten all about what had happened. And I'd woken up pretty frenetic about wanting to gather clean water from everywhere. It's a little, those of you that have mystical experiences, there's a little schizophrenia that sort of happens after them. And I'd gone in to talk to my friend, Janie, who, like she said something in it, completely woke me up to what had happened. And I was sharing and sharing and sharing, and all of a sudden we hear Aaron's voice. He goes, Mama? I go, yeah, honey. And he goes, I found my blankie. I said, you did? And he said, yeah, it's with God in heaven. And this sense of beautiful calm and peace came over him. Some great power, some great power brought us here. And we're part of that power. And that power lives in our emotions and our feelings and our sensations and our sensitivities. In Kaihil Gibran, he says, without without sorrow, there can be no joy. So and on the biofeedback machine, joy and sorrow register the same. Agony and ecstasy register the same. So might it be that it's our body's capacity for the intensity of the emotions that would be valuable to mature? The intensity of the emotional field. When I first started to, largely in my book, An Irish Tale of a Modern Mystic, it's a good book. Largely when the stories I wrote in that book, it really for me was in Ireland because the ground was so alive with the ether of the eternal, the ancient ways of bonded connection with the powers and forces of creation. And the fairies are so real there. Of course, I swam with fungi there, the dolphin. And I remember when I came out of the water, the first time I swam with fungi, I didn't know what it was called at the time. Somehow when we start calling something a name, it loses its bond with us. It loses its sensation, its animation. The name kind of cookie cutters it and stamps it, and we lose the experiential vibration of connection that we had had. But Richard Waterborne was with me, and about half the town of Dingle, who came in to see the woman that went swimming with fungi in her bra and underwear in the winter. And but I had body orgasms. I couldn't tell if they were agony or ecstasy. And I would just wail as these convulsions of energy would move through my body, much like tantric sex. Just wail because my body was overtaken by this connection with this incredible creature. A body memory. A body register. A body register that connected me. When you were a child, it was your body register that connected to you to your deep bonding with life. And since we weren't creatures that lived in the forest or camped in the desert, it was our animals and our dolls and our glass creatures and our ocean and our seashells, wherever it called us. The moon. It wasn't inherent, was it? It wasn't inherent to go there, have this. We never knew what was going to call us. As our spirit awakens, as it reawakens in the ethers of our bodies. I was talking with someone the other day about this great sorrow she has over what's happening in her family. But that sorrow, I wasn't registering sorrow. That's a reaction. I was registering love. I was registering the deep love between herself and her children. But isn't it interesting that we translate these deep intensities, these deep bonds, these deep feelings as anguish, sorrow, fear? And psychologically, we go towards loss. We go towards what we think we did wrong. It's pretty screwed up. But what if we could just take time, maybe 5 minutes? Melissa, so far in the Spirals of Being, we lost one person, Melissa Malin. She came to show us death in the most extraordinary manner. Just extraordinary. She was awake to the end and crossed over and shared about it. We talked about it. She was all ready. When she finally went, the door was open and she was in the extraordinary bliss of the place she was moving into. So what if we could work with our solar plexus, because that's where it triggers. What if we could rub our belly when we feel pain in our heart or loss in our skin, and feel our head start pounding us, thumping us with negative conversations? What if we could just rub our belly, our abdomen, and we could drop past the resistance. We could rest into the tension until on the other side of sorrow was the capacity of a human being to love. It's our gift. What if we could do a bit of psychological work with ourselves, with our child self? There's no inner child. If there's an inner child, there's an inner adult. It's all part of the makeup of our psyche. But what if we could coach ourselves? What if we could give our bodies the opportunity to restore themselves into right relationship, or our having a right relationship with the feelings of connection? I think it's a choice. I think it's a choice to feel. I think it's a choice to take the journey into fear and into pain and into longing, and tap what has us long, tap what has us fear, tap what has us react. Because if you drill down and you move into it, you were taught to only pay attention to the loss, not to the having. Forever. Because in the ethers, in your memory is forever. And the experiential states that you bonded with life with through what animated you, what made you feel real. That can never be taken away from you just because of a circumstance. That's what has humanity be holy, because we love in the face of things. I know everybody wants to be in the eternal Om, where there's no grief or fear or attachment. But the body doesn't feel that way. And it is the spiritual teachings that when we can love fully, everything transmutes into connection. Everything goes towards the beauty of being bonded to life. Everything, regardless of the name we give the feeling or the sensation or the sensitivity. For those of you that don't know, I had COVID in either June or July of last year, and I have post-COVID uh, problems that I'm working through, and one of them is it affected my heart and my lungs, and so I've really the last few months have really been confronting death. Also, losing Lily, my dog, opened that doorway of exploration for me. And I do mean that exploration. You know, the exploration of our emotions is an exploration. It isn't to solve a problem. It isn't to get over something. It's an exploration and discovery thing. It isn't a prediction thing. I can't predict. I'm obviously going to die unless things we get to our immortal selves, which I'm still working on, in a physical body, which I'm completely at work on. But several series of events, you know, cresting through death, having COVID, cresting through death, Lily finally going as long as she could and finally had to leave, leaving my, where I lived in California, moving to New Mexico, which is my ticker. It is my bond. It is what animates me. And then having this series of heart tests I'm going to have to do to see if my heart got damaged and to what extent, with all the stuff I've been through. So I was talking to my friend Shama because I asked her to put me in this place called the Baita for prayers and healing, but particularly them, because the Grail that their person Falco, that was the resource for the building of Damanhur. He said the next journey for humanity is confronting death and seeing what gifts it has to give us. That's why them. A lot of people ask for prayers because they fear outcome. They're trying to predict outcome. I'm a psychic. I can often predict outcome, but mostly you don't. Mostly you're being psychic, you're just present to what there is to be present to, so you can open up into what there is to open up into and have what there is to have. It's called being alive, being completely immersed in life is going to take a healthy, a vibrant, a deep-seated emotional palate, the ability to feel fully, whether it's gut-wrenching or gut-enhancing, to let the body feel and to love the sensations, to love the sensitivity, to love the feeling. And it takes you through a doorway. It takes you through a doorway into paradise, actually, where nothing can ever be taken away from you. Not ever. Forever. What you love can never be taken away from you. And what you are loved by will never lose you. So after Shamed let me know my heart was curled up in the baita, I said, I live life beautifully. And my fear was that I was afraid I wouldn't live death beautifully. Imagine that being my problem. Who'd thought? Who'd thunk? Because I was facing one of those places again, where fear of feeling, fear of the sensations of something new and unknown, fear of something that nobody ever gave you access to. No one ever told you how beautiful feelings are and how they enrich your life, and how when something animates you, it actually not only makes you feel fabulous, it actually improves the health of your body. There's no way around it, For humanity to return to itself, it has to go into its emotional palette. It has to love feeling. It has to see the richness behind every emotion. It's always love. Your anguish over how you thought you treated someone or how you see people treating each other, that's because you know love. And you know that's not the way you want love expressed. But what if you could just tap into the only reason you would feel that way is if you loved? The only reason you long to be accepted or known or understood is because you know they loved you. And it isn't the they that loved you that you should be attached to. It's that they animated love with you, that you could feel love again in all its quirky, crazy, biological expressions, physiological expressions, and biological. So as you all know, every now and then I feel the call of creation to use the sacred space for rest and courage to animate an etheric territory that I'm feeling become more present again in the human realm. So this time it was the animation of restoring what animates us, having it find us again. Because when we were children, we did not know what we were looking for. We did not know how to solve problems. We did not know the answer to things, and we could not predict. We were in a sea of sensation, a sea of sensitivity, a sea of vibration, a sea of animation. Our spirit had not been tamped down and forced into a narrow corridor of mind. So I deeply want to thank you for today. You could say, in the more adult manner of speaking about things, you could say that we did an activation, that we activated a remembrance. Remembrance is something that remembers itself, reconnects itself, rejoins itself, gathers itself back together, an energy force, a sensation. Those are our ethers. Those sensitivities, when we say sensitivities, we think of pain. But those sensitivities are the subtle energies that tap us, like when we feel the first raindrop on our nose. We're sensitive to it. We're sensitive to life, not to the opinion of it, but to the receptivity of it. And today, together, just because Eeyore and Tigger and Piglet and Pooh, they just called me and said, give us back our children. Give us back our place to animate you and me, especially with the world going through so much changes. Do you really think solving a problem is going to restore your feelings? Feelings are uncircumstantially based. We give them meaning. In the Irish, Old Irish, Gaelic, they don't say I fear, they say I have fear upon me. It's relational, not at the effect of. I have love upon me. I have joy upon me. I have tiredness upon me. I have confusion upon me. I have the unknown upon me. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to explore through sensation, sensitivity, imagination, vibration, animation, to explore what it is to be alive. We don't have a decent word because I can feel it. I live in resonant listening, resonant speaking. It's what the psyche is. That's what a psychic is. They vibrate with the resonance of the soul of all creation. Imagine, don't we want sensation anyway? We watch movies, we drink pop. But what if we just explored our own castle, our body, and trusted its sensations and let it feel the depth of itself and its mechanism? Because you are not independent of your body, and you would feel nothing if you didn't have one. This is the journey. It's an invitation to be in relationship with existence itself. And yes, you have to be able to feel when the emotions rise, when the sensation rise, particularly the grip of the intensity of some fears. And then you move. I say everything is to be loved, even fear itself, even hate. It's just a sensation with an interpretation. We've been so busy chopping everything up, making it into little teeny boxes, and we have our wrong feeling, right feeling boxes. But underneath wrong feeling, right feeling boxes, there's only sensation. There's only the movement of the body and the flow of experience that we give meaning. Look, I know it's hard. When I was in my 20s, I knew if I didn't get a healthy emotional palate, I was down for the count because I'm a cellular empath. I'm a cellular sensitive, you could say. And there were a couple of times, even recently, when something happened that I feared I might die of it because it was so brutal, so callous, so unfeeling. And I was in a delicate physical condition at the time. Didn't have my gigantic auric field, and my gigantic auric field isn't back yet. And we're working on it. We're building it back. And I was in such a fragile state without my energy field holding my body. I went back to my memories when I was young, that if I truly know that if I had not developed a healthy emotional palate with the level of sensitivity I carried, that I wouldn't have made it. And I almost didn't. I got rare diseases, and doctor once said, I think she's just allergic to being here. So we all carry this. We all carry some form of realizing something as our toys were told to be put away, and we weren't supposed to. If you looked in my car, Lily's blanket is on the back passenger seat, and her stuffed dragon and her stuffed bear, it's Christmas bear, and her other black and white teddy bear, and the unicorn I gave Sammy that I took back because the fur of it felt like Lily. They're right there. They're right there. Why? Because we're going through traffic, and we're driving around in a world that often doesn't occur as animate, often occurs as mechanical and possessed and obsessive, compulsive. But every time I walk towards the car, and I remember Lily looking out, I see her animals, and I see the unicorn, and I see her blankie, and I'm back. Just that simple. Just that simple. Then the last story I'm going to tell, because I am a storyteller, I'm sure some of you figured that out by now. It's this beautiful man. His name was Jim. Not the Jim a lot of you know, another Jim. And he had no emotional palate whatsoever. He was very, he pretty much talked like almost a dead person. But I remembered him. I remembered being married to him in a past life. His name was Tommy, and my name was Sarah. And I was a teacher in Arizona, and he was a pony soldier. I remembered all of it. When I sat down to read him, his sister had asked me to do a reading with him because she was so worried about him. So I moved to Columbus, Ohio, and he gave me a place upstairs, this gorgeous Victorian mansion, to do consults. I used to do all in person. And I'd get near him and start to cry I wouldn't cry like I'm emoting. Tears, just this emotion would just flow down out of my eyes and down my face. And one day he said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "I'm crying because you can't." Because I knew I was feeling his buried tears. So I'd worked there about 6 months, and I came in to go to work one day, and he was coming down the stairs, and tears were flowing down his face. And he was wiping his nose and crying and laughing. And he looks at me and he says, "Look, look, tears. I love you so much."